Welcome to the Van Ryn Compliance Podcast with Rob and Dawn. We help growing teams reduce risks, build trust, and stay audit-ready without the overwhelm.
Well, Dawn, it has been a busy month here on the Van Ryn Podcast.
It has.
Hasn't it?
Yes, it has. AI, and AI.
And more AI. And not to say AI is going to be pushed to the curb because it's only getting going, but I want to do in this week's podcast, we do a quick kind of recap, like what have we really talked about?
Yeah.
A couple podcasts ago, a couple weeks ago, we talked to Dr. Camille Howard. I really talked about the focus of having that human in the middle or that pause authority, or sometimes called the emergency authority, right? You know, making sure that it's not just the AI bot doing the bot things, making sure the humans are still in the mix.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we have to remember with AI, even though you think it's going to do everything, legalities are still there, meaning all the legal frameworks and the laws are still in place. They haven't changed. And your management, your board, and even your individuals who are configuring AI are liable either from a legal perspective.
Yep. Absolutely. And the other thing too is AI is here to stay, and you've got to learn how to play in the sandbox with it, whatever that looks like for your organization. But yes, you've got to have the human piece of it. You've got to review what is AI presenting to you, and let's make sure that it is valid. And you just have to double check it. You have to double check it. So the human in the middle, that was a great podcast. So if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend going back to that one. And then we did another one with our auditor Benny Cleveland, and he talked more into the AI governance piece of it. So what were some of the highlights there, Rob, that we talked about with him?
Yeah, the governance and then obviously the tabletop. So the governance piece is, starting with, Benny really talked about, and this is why he brings a lot of value to the Van Ryn team, talks about starting with why. What is the why? Why do you really want AI? What is the problem it's solving? Is it a billing issue? Is it a phone issue? Is it a data aggregation issue? Is it a coding issue? All of that, right? Making sure that you start with the why, and then building the frameworks around how you build and implement that AI bot, because those are the key pieces. Be very specific on where it goes, and actually be very careful. I know Benny talked about making sure that the security parameters are set, right? So don't allow the large language models to, ingest and absorb the data and use it for all of their models. Make sure it's ultimately trained for your own. So the big thing I would always recommend everybody is build your own. It's a simple checkbox. It's very low cost right now. Obviously, as it scales, it gets pricier, but you can build your own, Geminis, your Claudes, or build your own open. I was gonna say open GBT.
GBTs. Yeah, you can do your own GBTs. Yeah,
get your own GBTs out there. What did you think all the other day? Wasn't it GBTs?
There's so many.
I don't know. Our kid had something fun to say about it.
Yeah.
But I don't even remember. Everybody's got the GBTs, right? Like the heebie-jeebies. But make sure you build your own. So Benny is really, really good at that. And then dovetailing that piece into, as a recap, into tabletops. So we're going to talk in the next upcoming podcast, the new HIPAA 2.0, we're kind of calling it here at Van Ryn.
Yeah.
And that is going to be the new regulations and laws that are going to go into effect, looks like in May. So May, we will see new HIPAA regulations, new laws on the books. And one of those I've seen so far is a tabletop exercise, is actually going through your disaster recovery plan. Or the time of this recording, we know there is a state of emergency in the Northeast with all the snowstorms. Do you know what to do when your team can't connect, right? Or if you have someone that physically needs to be in the office, what do we do?
Yeah.
Or what if your team members doesn't have power? What if they don't have, power, food, or shelter? What do you do? What if you're in the AWS East region and they lose power? Can you roll over to the Midwest or the West region? Or if you're in Azure or GCP or any of that, you've got to test, because sure, we'll get the emails or the messages or the Slack messages that all is well and we're getting our backups and everything. But if you don't test it, you don't know it. Right. It's like studying the playbook, but unless you're tested on the football field, or in this case on the ice rink, when team USA wins the gold as they did over the weekend, you have to be tested. Right, Dawn?
Absolutely. So how do we test? Well, in speaking about AI governance, let's kind of unpack that. How you would test it is you would do an AI governance and audit. There are two different ways you can go. you can go to the ISO 42001, which is actually an international standard for AI management. You can go that route, or you can go the route of a NIST AI RMF, which is the Risk Management Framework. Both are, you know, mapped, to each other. Is One is you can get a certification for an ISO 42001. You can actually get actual certification. You can just adhere to the standards, ISO
Mhm.
42001 and NIST AI, and just know that you've gone through the framework, you've got the governance in place, and you can get it set there. But we want to kind of take a deep dive into the difference between the two. So that's kind of an overall general. You've got one that's a true certification, but you've got another one that's a true framework. Like I
Yeah.
said, both equally great. And out, guiding you through the necessary controls. But it's just depending on which way you want to go with your organization.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna kind of dive into kind of the differences and today, and so you
And go
can
through those steps.
understand.
Yeah, because you're going to have to make for our listeners and our clients, you're going to have to make a decision
Mhm.
on how you're going to be audited. Again, with AI, right? What does
Yeah.
that look like? It's not a if, it's a when. So, do you want to
Mhm.
go a certification with ISO or do the internal framework?
Right.
And yes, you can do both. We're going to break
Right.
those down a little bit.
Right.
Now I know, Don, you obviously do the ISO because you're more detail oriented.
Mhm.
So you're the ISO queen, and you have your certifications. You are the lead auditor
Yep.
at Van Ryn here for the ISO. What I like about it is they talk about it as a management system, right?
Mhm.
That's the big thing. So
Yep.
that management system really puts the AI governance together and puts that framework together, the structures, the process, the rules, the
Yep.
controls to manage AI responsibly in the life cycle. That's what I see. Else do you see in that standard?
Yeah, the ISO standard, it doesn't uses AI governance, but it more talks about the management system, because
Yeah.
ISO is based on your information security management system. So you're going to hear that terminology. So just to be clear, is that both of them, yes, is AI governance, generally speaking, but you're going to hear ISO. If you go through that audit, you're going to hear a management system. So you really are building governance, a framework, a system when you do data security. When you talk about AI, any kind of security, that's what you're doing. You're building a system and then you're going to
Yep.
implement it. So,
Yep. You're actually, I feel like you're building an organization. You're usually building like a department within your
mhm,
organization. It's not saying you have to hire 5 people,
right.
but you would tap like 5 people, right?
Mhm,
You'd have you're going to have leadership as a stakeholder. You're going to have IT in there, but IT is not
mhm,
responsible for it. They're just there at the table. Your
mhm,
stakeholders are going to be leadership, your executives, board members, like
mhm.
that. You probably have someone from a program and coding standpoint, and then also, 1 or 2 people like the testing, like kind of like that front lines, like the people that are working with it day to day. Make sure it
Yep,
works right and test it, test it, test it. But
yep,
that's really I kind of like that ISO piece.
yeah.
Now, there's a lot of misconceptions that it's designed for any organization, large or small, but I think it fits in any organization, right?
Mhm,
If you're a solopreneur to a thousand
mhm.
head employee company, don't you
Yeah.
think?
Any form of AI. It doesn't matter if you've built one or you're just using it as a chatbot or something just on the side. You've created your own chat GBT. It's for any usage of AI. AI is going to have data in it. And you have to build that framework around what data it's using, where the data is being stored, and is this customer facing? Is it just an internal? These are all questions that you need to understand the answer to and set the guidelines for your organization on how you want your staff to use it, or how you want your customers to use it.
Yep.
So,
Yep, those are definitely key pieces. And it's already there, right? We already have the chat bots,
mhm,
hiring tools, fraud detection. One of the key warnings is making sure you know the type of data that's ingested, right?
yeah,
If it's health information, that's federally regulated. If
mhm,
it's credit card information, that's PCI data, if you
mhm,
want to call it that way, and it's regulated. Personal identifiable information from a state, federal law. If you have citizens of the EU, there is the EU data protection laws, there's
mhm,
GDPR, and then also there's the AI EU laws as well. So
yeah,
you need to have a very fine scope of how you want to use it and where you want to use it.
yeah, yep.
Now, has any country actually made this mandatory, Don, that you're aware of?
Nope, not yet. But there is the EU AI Act, and that's where, other countries are pushing into. But so far, no, but I would guess that this is probably over the next year. It's going to become, maybe next year, it's going to become a requirement
Yeah.
because there's going to be so much usage of AI.
Yeah.
So,
Put the guardrails on.
yep. It's
And the
better
door
to
applies.
start with the program now,
Yep.
build it now, and then as you build out how you're using AI, maybe your company is going to create their own AI. Maybe you're going to create a new company.
You
Maybe
could.
you're going to have an offshoot of your current company, and you're just going to have an AI company. It's better to have those guardrails and have things in place before you start doing that. So absolutely, and yeah, I mean it's the important thing is to know like what data you're putting in it
Mhm.
and where is that data being stored
Yeah.
and how are you using this data. Your customers will want to know that too. If they're going to use a chatbot on your website, where's that data going? You need to advise them that in your privacy policy, your terms of service, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Then the data leaking, make sure you know where that data goes. Don't let it just leak. It will absorb and
mm-hmm.
ingest anything and everything it can. Right.
Yep.
Think about it as your think about any of your social media ads, right? Say you look up a vacation or heck, it could be anything, a coffee shop. All of a sudden there's,
Mm-hmm.
20 different ads for coffee shops in your social media, excuse me, platforms. It's the same thing with AIs, just how we're doing with marketing and ingesting your cookies and your tokens. We can do the same thing with the AI piece. You got to be very careful of that in the
Yep.
structure.
Yep. Yep.
Now, 42001 obviously follows the 27001 structures,
Mm-hmm.
correct? It's the high level structure. Yeah.
Yep. So there's if y'all know ISO 27001, you know that that's based on clauses. HIPAA, we've got controls, SOC 2 controls. ISO calls them clauses, annexes. So, again, the terminology ISO versus NIST, NIST. It's I think it's GF1,
Yeah.
AF1. The different acronyms, but the controls. I mean, when you look at it side by side, you look at it's going to have the scope, the risk assessment. You're going to have similar questions, and it's really going to map and be very similar. Just some different verbiage. So again, it's doing the same thing. It is auditing your
Yeah.
AI governance. So just know that it's going to be worded just a little bit different.
Yeah.
Because the ISO is an international standard, so it's going to have more of a more robust verbiage to it.
Structure. Yeah, and if you walk through those, you have your clause 5. There's different clauses, like you mentioned, like controls,
Mhm.
right? Like 4 is context for the stakeholders. 5 is leadership. We
Yep.
talked about leadership has got to be bought into that. 6 is planning. How are
Mhm.
you planning to implement? And that includes risk audits and risk assessments
Mhm.
and those standards. And then it also goes down into from that 6 into 7 and 8. I'm just really diving through the standard management system, the territory, right? The resources, the training, the monitoring, internal audits, and corrective actions.
Yeah.
The training piece is key. At Van Ryan, we do a lot of training. You have to train, make sure you train your team how to use the AI.
Mhm.
And it's on all their devices. It's plugged into every meeting. It's everywhere. They have to know what's an approved AI for the organization. And then you got to be able to monitor that and have those audits because you're going to have internal audits from an AI perspective for ISO. But also we do it in our HIPAA audits now. We include a scope for AI, like how are you using it? Where are you using it? What are you doing with that? And then also have your corrective actions and risk register. Those are the key pieces. And it sounds like a lot because it is, and it's supposed to be robust. But that's how we just kind of really help out and walk through those steps with everybody.
Yeah. And so let's kind of, basically ISO 42001 requires documentation. There's 38
Oh, yeah.
Annex A controls unless you explicitly exclude them. So there is core documents. You've got a scope document. You've got a policy, risk management methodology, risk assessment. You've got a statement of applicability, a risk treatment plan. You've got all these other things. Now, so you've got those. I mean, don't get all stressed out about that. So then let's go to NIST AI RMF. What does that look like? And what does NIST call it? So let's just kind of fast forward here. The NIST is built around the 4 core functions: govern, map, measure, and manage. So for things like the govern, that's going to it's going to map over to clauses like 4 and 5 and parts of 6 for ISO 42001. So you're going to, again, measure is going to do, the risks through testing, manage is responding, monitoring. It's all going to map over.
Yeah.
Again, it's just the way it's laid out, but it's all really going to map over. And at the end of the day, it's all going to build your AI governance program. So it's how you want to go about it. What we like to do here at Van Ryn is we do a mix. We blend it.
Yeah.
So we bring both together, if you will. Now, we don't do an actual 42001 certification. We would use an external auditor that we work with, but we will verify that you have an AI governance program built. And we utilize both, like I said, the NIST AI RMF and the ISO 42001. So bless you. I know that was a lot. So yeah. So I know that's kind of a lot in a nutshell, but I don't want to get into the weeds too much because they're both very important. It's just a matter of which way you want to go. But with us, we're going to do a blend, but you can do a separate 42001 certification.
Yeah.
And we can definitely help you with that.
Yeah. And it's a certification by an accredited body.
Yes.
That is key. There are people that'll say they're auditors and they can give you certifications, but if they're not accredited, it's not a valid certification by the IAF board, which is really good. And it takes about, I don't know, probably 4 to 5 months, I think, Dawn, pretty much to get through readiness. So you got to get through the readiness, prepare the IMS, build it, get the documentation, and then you have a 45-day evaluation period, stage 1 and stage 2, to verify the controls and clauses are in place. And then verify that they're actually activated and they're actually running. So those are the key pieces.
Yeah, and it also depends, your organization size as well. So, that's a good, average, a 3 to 6 month type of time frame.
Yep. And then you got to maintain it because then you're going to come back around and do it all over again.
Yep.
And you need meeting minutes, you need meeting notes and items like that.
Yep. Exactly.
Very good. Should we shift over to NIST?
Well, we can. Yes, that I kind of wanted to give that preface. So yes, I did just preface kind of the differences and where it maps over. But yeah, once you go into if there's other specific items that you wanted to outlay for that.
Yeah, I think we've gotten through the NIST piece. Sorry, through the ISO piece. The ISO is a true certification, and internal external audit. Now let's kind of talk about the NIST AI RMF, which requires an internal audit. You don't have that third party like you do with ISO. Even like with SOC, you have that third party examination. So with the NIST piece, obviously the NIST RMF. AI RMF was published in January of 23, so we're just barely 3 years old, just a few months before the ISO standards. So it pretty much everything's kind of built off NIST, and then it kind of goes from there. But we know the NIST is for our U.S. federal agencies, so there's a lot more weight in the U.S. with the American government and regulated industries. So that's kind of the key pieces. If you're doing a lot of work through Europe and Asia, I would definitely go for the ISO. And as a focus, right? But if you're doing work here in the States, start with the NIST, and then it's like, okay, how can I layer that IMS on top? And what does that look like? So the big difference is right now is there is no certification. There is internal gathering of information and internal readiness audit. And then we just put together a summary report for you. That's what we do at Van Ryn. So there's not a certification from an accredited body that you can show you've been certified like ISO, but we can do the internal auditing, and then we can provide you with documentation that you've went through an SAOF AI RMF audit and have those controls in place. Those are the big ones.
Yep.
Yeah. Why don't you go through those core functions again, Dawn, with NIST?
Yeah, and just so you know, they both are very similar. They're both risk based. They're both audits, governance to see where you're at, and they do have an output as far as where your gaps are. So that again, and Rob said it right. The biggest difference is ISO is 42001 is to get a certification. It's through a certified body. But so for NIST, we talked about the clauses in ISO 42001. For NIST, there's 4 core functions: so govern, map, measure, and manage. Leave it to the government to kind of to kind of
Break it
lump
all
them
down.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very governmenty.
For me.
So govern is the governance. It's the, the policies, the structures, the culture, that type of thing. And this is, what I was saying before, it basically maps and mirrors clauses 4, 5, and part of 6
Mhm.
for ISO 42001. Map is where you identify and categorize the risks. So, that's like risk impact, risk treatment assessments, things like that, as far as ISO. And then measure, it's analyzing, tracking the risks. It's where the gaps are. So, and then manage. How do you respond? How do you monitor it? How are you going to mitigate it? How are you documenting it?
Mhm.
So it's laid out very well. You can see if you were to put them side by side, it really maps nicely. So again, ISO they're very similar, but again, it just depends on what structure you like. Here at Van Ryn, we blend both of them.
Yeah.
So you're getting kind of the best of both worlds. But again, it's not that true certification on your
Yeah.
website. But again, you're doing what you need to do. We're helping you build the program, get ready, build the program, and then you and the tools to implement it in your organization. So, yep.
Yeah, those are the different
Mhm.
different key pieces. So if you kind of go head to head,
Mhm.
how we can really compare these, the ISO standard is going to be more auditable in a structured sense,
Mhm.
where you have this different stages, a 2-stage audit.
Mhm.
We'll do internally with the NIST RMF AIs. We'll do probably about 4-stage audits to bring everything
Mhm.
in and get through it like within a month or so.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll have the key pieces of the applicability state and the exits and the policies and all of
Mhm.
that. What are
Mhm.
you really going to audit against within ISO and then with the NIST AIRMF, and then understand the maturity of the assessment, which is
Mhm.
really a key piece. Those are
Yep.
kind of the key things.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, if you're doing work within the government, even some of the large organizations, they're going to probably lean more into that NIST standard because it
Mhm.
is it was created here, our own National Institute of Security and Technology.
Yeah.
I can talk today. There we go. And it's basically laid out the framework of
Mhm.
what we've got to do for globally or even a lot of the European standards. Yep. Now we do get this question sometimes. I know we do have a lot on the ISO piece, but can you blend them together, Dawn? Can you actually take both standards and blend them together? If so, what does that look like?
Yeah, you should. You should, because it's the best programs are using both. And that's why here at Van Ryn, we always do more. We don't do just the minimum. And that's why we have blended both. And so we recommend that. Now, that's not to say if you're just going to go full on, ISO 42001, we're going to go do that. Not to say it's not going to be good. Of course, it's going to be
Yeah.
a great certification, a great program to do. We are just, like I said, we like to blend both, that's how we like to present that to our customers, and when we're preparing them. So yeah, use both. Definitely. If you're just going to go ISO, if you're already one of our customers for 27001, you're just going to do the 42001. I think that's great as well. But just yeah, you can do both. You can do one or the other. But they're you just really need what works best for you and your organization. What is
Yeah.
the best governance program? And we'll help you with that.
Yeah. And that's why
course.
we're here, to walk
Mhm.
through that and see what's best.
Yeah.
You may not need an international standard, but you need a
Mhm.
US standard, which a lot
Yep.
of our clients would need. Well,
Yep.
those were good, Don. We went
Yep.
through, everything from our podcast 3 weeks ago
Yeah.
with Dr. Howard to Benny. We talked
Mhm.
about the human in the middle, the pause authority, to
Yep.
Benny talking about the auditing and the tabletop exercises,
Mhm.
now into these 2 standards. So if there are questions, reach out. We've got information there in the notes of the
Absolutely.
podcast, and we're here to help guide you through that, and just love talking about it. So we want to make sure you're successful,
Yep.
that you can grow your business in the way you want to with AI.
Yep. Awesome. Yep. Reach out if you need. Just a little last note is AI governance is not really optional anymore.
Correct.
It's going to become a standard.
Yep.
And so we're here to help answer any questions you may have. But hopefully we unpacked that a little bit. I know that was a lot. If you have any questions, just let us know.
Yep.
And yeah.
That's it. All righty. Until next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.